Hi, reader. We've got an awesome author visit to share with you today. We're all hard at work on the 3rd season of Reading Bug Adventures, with some great new adventures to exciting new places in store. But we're not ready to release them just yet. So, while we wait, I'll be posting bonus episodes, like this one, to introduce you to some of our favorite authors. We're very lucky to have authors visit our store and nearby schools, and the Reading Bug and I want to make sure you get a chance to meet them too. You'll get to meet some of the authors who inspire our adventures, and you'll also get to learn all about what they've written and how they write. On this episode, we get to meet the amazing and hilarious Mac Barnett. Mac has written some of our very favorite books for kids. His picture books include 2 Caldecott-Honor and E.B. White Read Aloud Award-winning books with Jon Klassen, Sam and Dave Dig a Hole, and Extra Yarn. And his books Leo, a Ghost Story, illustrated by Christian Robinson, and The Skunk, illustrated by Patrick McDonnell, were named 2 of the 10 best illustrated books of 2015 by the New York Times. Mac has also written novels including the Brixton Brothers Mysteries and the Terrible 2 series. And he's just released the 2nd book in the hilarious new Mac B Kid Spy series. We love Mac and are thrilled to get to share him with all of you. So, why don't we all fly to our bookstore together to hear from Mac? It's time for a Reading Bug Adventure author visit.
Hey, Lauren, want to play a game with me?
Sure, Reading Bug. What do you want to play?
Super secret spies. I have my binoculars and night vision goggles, and I'm ready for action.
Okay, Reading Bug. But first, would you like to meet a real-life spy?
A real spy? Are you serious? Oh, yes.
Well, my friend, author Mac Barnett, claims he was once a real spy, as a kid, going on super secret missions for the Queen of England. And he's coming here for a visit.
A real spy? Here at the bookstore? Oh, I'm so excited. But Lauren, if he's a real spy, do you think we'll even know he's here?
Yes.
How do you know?
Because he's walking through the front door right now.
Oh, hey, hi Mac. Don't worry, your secret's safe with us. Welcome to the Reading Bug Bookstore.
Hey, Reading Bug, how are you?
Great. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, Mac, thanks. Let's introduce you to everyone. Hello from the Reading Bug. We're here today with New York Times-bestselling author Mac Barnett. Mac is the author of many hilarious picture books, middle grade series, and now early readers too, with his latest Mac B Kid Spy. His books have sold over 1 million copies and have been translated into 30 different languages. Mac, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So we'll talk about Mac B in just a minute, but you've written so much wonderful material for kids that I'd like to go back in time a little bit and talk about how the Mac Barnett came to be.
All right, let's do it. I think I figured out I wanted to write really early, probably when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade. I used to make books all the time. I would draw pictures in them myself, tie them together with some yarn, give them to friends, give them to my mom, and I think that's when you become a writer, when you make a story, not because someone told you to, not because it's your homework, but because you just felt like it. But I didn't know what kind of writing I wanted to do, so I didn't know if I wanted to maybe be a novelist or a journalist or a poet. And when I was in college, I was an English major, which meant that I read a lot of books when I was in school. And then on my summers off, I worked as a summer camp counselor with kids. And I would tell kids stories and read them picture books. And that's when I figured out that kids are just about the smartest, most curious, most interesting readers a writer could have, at least for the kinds of stories I wanted to tell. And I decided in college that I wanted to write kids' books.
That's great. So what was your very first published book?
My first published book was called Billy Twitters and His Blue Whale Problem, and that is about a kid who gets a blue whale as a pet, but it's a punishment, and it ruins his life.
Billy Twitters and his blue whale problem is awesome. That was really your very first published book?
Yeah, that was my first picture book. And actually, I had a wild experience here doing a visit with the Reading Bug. A few years after that book had come out, a kid came up to me at a school. We were visiting a school, and she said, "This is the first picture book I ever had." And she was a fully grown kid who had gotten that book before any other kid. And it was doing that school visit with the Reading Bug that I realized that I was becoming an old man.
Oh, no.
So thank you.
You are welcome. That was actually, Billy Twitters was one of the first books that we put out when we opened the Reading Bug.
So yeah, because the Reading Bug has been open for
9 years.
9 years, and Billy Twitters came out 9 years ago.
That
We've
makes
been
sense.
doing this the same amount of time.
Wow, so does
Yeah.
that mean I'm old too?
No.
Oh, no,
No, it
we're
doesn't.
both old.
No, it doesn't. I'm just aging faster than everybody.
Yes, it's just you.
It's just me.
So you've worked with many wonderful illustrators in your many, many, many years. And they include Caldecott-Honor-winning collaborations with Jon Klassen for Sam and Dave Dig a Hole, and this also won the E.B. White Read Aloud Award, my favorite award for picture books.
That's my favorite award for picture books,
It is.
too.
Let's talk
Yeah.
about the E.B. White Award a little bit. That's such a neat one. And it's about, well, tell us what the E.B. White is about.
Well, I think there are two things that I love about it. One, it's voted on by booksellers, and I think booksellers are they read a ton, and they're generally pretty smart people, so it means a lot that they like your book, but it's for reading out loud. It's how does this thing sound and feel when it's shared, and that's something I love about picture books, is that sometimes you read a picture book by yourself, but more often you're reading a picture book with someone else. There's maybe somebody reading a picture book to you, or you're reading it to another kid, or maybe you're in class and you're all listening to a picture book together. And picture books are meant to be read out loud. The Caldecott's such a cool award. It's the most famous award for picture books. But the way that it's officially given out, it's given out for only the pictures, not the text. So, when Extra Yarn got a Caldecott Honor, that meant that Jon got the award. It's for him. Jon. He let me see it.
That was nice.
It was nice. He didn't let me touch it, but he let me look at it. That's not really how picture books work, though, right? Picture books are stories that you tell with words and pictures together. And a lot of the time you tell them out loud. And the E.B. White Read Aloud Award, I think, acknowledges that.
Oh, hey, Mac. You mentioned that you used to tie your homemade books together with yarn as a kid. Was there a connection between that and the Extra Yarn book?
I think that probably just like a love of yarn. I do love yarn. I love yarn. I love wool. I wear a lot of sweaters. So that's probably down there somewhere. But the Extra Yarn, the book came about actually because I saw a picture that Jon Klassen had drawn when he was in college. We were friends before we started making books together. And that's pretty weird. Most of the time, the author and the illustrator in a picture book don't even know each other. But Jon and I were friends before we made books together. We were friends before either of us had made any books that were out. And I saw a picture that he made in college of a girl and a dog walking through the snow wearing matching sweaters. And I really liked this picture, and that's where I got the idea for the book. And that's a little weird, too. Most of the time with picture books, the text comes first, and then an illustrator comes in later and draws pictures. But Extra Yarn started with a picture that gave me an idea for a story, and once I'd written the story, then Jon went through and made pictures for the rest of it.
So with you and Jon, when you worked together also on Sam and Dave Dig a Hole, did you have words first, or did you guys start collaborating together?
Sam and Dave, we started doing that. We were having breakfast together, and we started talking about the shape of books, what's called the trim size, and all that means is how tall the book is and how wide the book is. And we were talking about like tall, skinny books and how they feel like if they were tall like that, the story should either move up or move down. And we thought down was a more interesting direction to go in than up. Jon and I both liked digging holes when we were kids, So I started making up that story, and Jon started drawing the sketches out on a napkin, and it really started together at breakfast.
So now I'm going to get you in big trouble.
All right.
You've already worked with so many hilarious illustrators and authors, Jory John, Greg Pizzoli, Adam Rex, Dan Santat, many others. Do you have a favorite collaborator?
You know, that is really hard. I think that every collaboration is a little bit different. So sometimes, like when I worked with Elise Parsley, she and I didn't know each other at all, and we didn't talk at all during the process. And then sometimes, like Christian Robinson, who did Leo, he is a friend of mine, and we talked a little bit, but I wasn't, if he asked me a question, I was happy to give him my answer, but I didn't expect him to do whatever I told him to. The book was his, and I was just somebody that he might want to ask something. So we did talk about it a little bit, but not a lot. And then with Jon, we sort of make things together, and every book is a little bit different. But I don't think either of us have another relationship like that. And Jon's my really good friend in real life, but we also work together so closely when we're making books. And that's really special to me. I think that the books we make together, we're able to sort of push each other to places that we wouldn't be able to get to otherwise. And that makes that collaboration really special.
Mm-hmm. So here's a question that won't get you in as much
All right,
trouble.
yeah. I sort of avoided answering the last one.
Good for you.
I just described things.
It's friendship.
It's friendship.
Actually, you described your friendships beautifully. I like that. It's important to have good friends. So especially when you're working together on things as important as books that are getting out there into kids' hands.
That's right.
It just shows in the work, right? So the question is, do you have a favorite book that you've made?
That's a good question. A favorite book that I made. I have 3 that are kind of in that top tier for me. One is called Guess Again, and that's the second book I ever wrote. Adam Rex did the pictures for that. One is called Leo, a Ghost Story, and Christian Robinson did the pictures for that. And one is called The Wolf, the Duck, and the Mouse, which Jon Klassen did the pictures for. And also won an E.B. White Read Aloud Award.
Yes,
I just can't even believe that.
But that's I think that says a lot. I mean, about all of your work, and actually I think almost every book you've written should have an E.B. White Read Aloud Award.
I agree.
Speaking of, so booksellers, what's going on here? I don't know if they've read Mac B yet, but clearly that is waiting for that award. So let's talk about that. It's probably my favorite chapter book of yours, Mac B. Kid Spy. Although I do admit I do have a special place in my heart for the Brixton Brothers.
Yeah, thank you.
I do love
Me
those.
too.
I really do.
Thank you. That means a lot.
And the Terrible 2 series.
Yep.
So with you and Jory John, and
Yep.
especially when you came here and talked about it.
Yeah, you had all the kids at the store on the floor laughing. Speaking of laughing, can we talk about Mac B. Kid Spy now, Lauren? Mac, I just love the book. Can you tell us where you got the idea for it?
Sure. So Mac B. Kid Spy, that's a wild one for me because, my first, it's my 32nd book, and my first 31 books, they're all fiction, right? And fiction means that the story is made up. But Mac B. Kid Spy is a little different for me. It is my memoir, or as some people say, people like me, my memoir. And what that means is it's stories from my life that I'm remembering. It's when I was a kid, the people I knew, the places I went, and of course, all the spy missions that I went on for the Queen of England. So, yeah, it's that's where I came up with the idea, by sitting and remembering all of the wild times I had traveling all over the world to recover the crown jewels.
Wait, seriously? You were a spy?
Look, a lot of people have trouble believing it. Some people are incredulous. They come at me, thank you. They come at me with all sorts of skeptical questions. And, if you look closely at the book, you'll see that it's shelved in the fiction section, which I think is outrageous and offensive, because I put all of my personal truths in there. But yeah, the author's note says right there, it says, "My name is Mac Barnett. I am an author. But before I was an author, I was a kid. And when I was a kid, I was a spy. An author's job is to make up stories. But the story you're about to read is true. This actually happened to me."
This is very interesting.
Powerful stuff.
It is
really,
very powerful.
Yeah.
I don't know how one is a spy before an author. I mean, I like the idea.
Yeah. Well, spies and authors have a lot in common. You have to watch the world closely. You spend a lot of time by yourself reading. And it's always good to have a notebook with you, right? Yeah.
I just wonder if secretly you might still be a spy posing as an author.
That's a good question. Publicly, I am no longer a spy. I'm just an author. But secretly, who knows what I am secretly, right? The story out there, what I will say, what I'm willing to say on the record on this podcast, I'm going to give you just the party line. I retired when I was a kid, and I've been just living my life as an author since then, with some time in between for high school.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
All right.
I wonder what the readers think out there, but I'm sure we'll hear.
Readers, you can figure it out. Let us know what you think.
You can write to us on social media at Reading Bug Box or at The Reading Bug and tell us what you think of Mac's life.
Send your
as a
theories.
spy. Send your theories. So, in addition to Mac B, is there a book out there that you wish you'd written?
Yeah, there's so many books out there that I wished I'd written, but one, a book that came out a couple years ago, that is one of my favorites, and I'm very jealous of it. It's called Do Is Talk by Carson Ellis. And it is the story of a flower growing, blooming, and dying, but it is all told in bug language. So all of these bugs are living next to this flower and building forts in it and living in it, but the story is not in any language that you have ever seen before. It is written in bug language. But you, by the end of the book, will understand what the bugs are saying. You learn a new language reading the book. You learn how to speak to insects. And I think it's such a cool book, and I'd never seen anything like it before, but it showed the kinds of stories you can only tell with picture books, and I'm always excited by that.
I wonder if the Reading Bug can translate for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think so, Reading Bug?
I'd be happy to try.
Well, that's a really neat book. And it's interesting when you have a book like that, everyone gets something different from it.
Yes.
And looking at that right away, I didn't quite understand what I was looking at, and the way you are explaining it to me is another whole view that I never would have thought of.
I think it's so interesting too because grown-ups, we read picture books a lot, and the experience that we have when we come to that book is different from the experience that a lot of kids will have with it. Because I know a lot of kids who love to read picture books, and they may not be able to read every word on the page. They may know some words, or they might not know how to read any of the words, but they can still figure out the story, and they can decode it from the pictures, and that's a way that a lot of kids I know learn how to read. And that book forces us as adults to go back there, and we don't know the words either, and we have to learn again. And it's one of those books, and I think this is true. A lot of times we make a mistake as adults, and we think if something is hard for us, it's going to be even harder for kids. But actually, some things that are hard for us are easier for kids.
Yep.
And that book, I think, shows that.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
That's really neat. So, what other authors or illustrators inspire your work?
Some of my favorite authors and illustrators, when I was growing up, I had a lot of picture books that my mom bought me at garage sales and yard sales. So I grew up in the 1980s and the 1990s, but a lot of my picture books and chapter books were from the 1930s, the 1940s, the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. And that was great. I love so many of those books, and they still mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
So Margaret Wise Brown is one of my favorite authors of picture books. Arnold Lobel, who wrote the Frog and Toad books. I love those books. James Marshall, I think, is one of the funniest picture book, maybe the funniest picture book writer we've had.
I love George and Martha.
I love George and Martha. The Stupid Step Out, and then there are all of these books. Some of them aren't even in print anymore, and I'll find them at the library, and there's always a page that just makes me laugh so hard in a James Marshall book. Yeah.
If you could give one piece of advice to kids who want to be an author when they grow up, what would it be?
I think the most important thing for authors to do is to read all the time. The more books you read, the better you get at writing, and that does not stop when you graduate from school or become an adult. It is still the most important part of my job. And I love to read. It's one of my favorite things to do, but it's also the most important thing for me to do every day. So even though I'm a writer, I'll tell you a secret. I don't write every day. Sometimes I don't even write for weeks. But I read every day, and that's going to work for me. That's really important to do. Read books. Read all different kinds of books. Read books that you like. Read books that you think you're not going to like, but then maybe it turns out you do like. Read books that you know you don't like, and figure out why they make you so angry. I get more ideas from the books that I want to throw across the room than I do from the books that I clutch to my chest. Sometimes reading a book and not liking it will inspire you to write a book that's even better. So the more you read, the better you get at writing.
Totally agree. In fact, so we interviewed Daniel Jose Older a few weeks ago, and he actually had something similar to say about not writing every day. And I think that's so interesting because there's this, it seems to be a stigma that if you don't write every day, you are not a writer.
That's right.
But that's not true.
No, I think that's right. I think that it's hard. Writers get stuck and they can't figure out what to write next. And I remember when I was a kid and that would happen to me, I would feel really discouraged because I really wanted to be a writer, but I got stuck. Sometimes I wouldn't have ideas, or I didn't like making lots of drafts. And now I am a writer as my job, and I still get stuck. I still run out of ideas in the middle of a story. I still don't like making drafts. I make them, but I don't like that part of the job. There are lots of parts of the job that are hard, and I think you're right. Sometimes you'll hear writers say, get up at 5 a.m. before the sun rises, light a candle, and fill your house with beautiful smells of sage, and sprinkle potpourri across your desk, and then sit down and just write from your soul every morning. And that's not the kind of writer I am. And if that is the kind of writer you are, that's great. But the important thing is to find out the way that you write, the thing that works for you, that gets stuff that you feel proud of out onto the piece of paper. And that's different for all of us.
Mm-hmm. So it's very clear that you love writing and you love what you do. But if you couldn't be a writer or a spy,
sure. Okay, so
what would you be?
So I was a writer and a spy. Other jobs I've had: a painter, a camp counselor, a substitute teacher, and let's see. Oh, I was a janitor at a high school, but in the at an elementary school, but in the summer, so it was pretty easy because nobody was there to clean up after. So I think none of those jobs. I'm going to put all those jobs off the table. The thing that I thought I was going to be, I gave myself a year after I graduated college, and I said, in this year, I'm going to try to write a picture book, because that is my first choice job, picture book writer. But if I don't, I'm going to go back to school, and I'm going to get my PhD, which is a fancy degree that takes 7 years to get, and I was going to get my PhD probably in medieval poetry.
Ooh.
And become a medievalist. And I'd probably grow a very large beard, big enough that some owls could live in it, and I'd spend all of my days reading books that were written 1,000 years ago. That sounded pretty good. It still sounds pretty good.
I'm not sure I want to see that. I think
I'm not sure anybody wants to see that.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, Mac Barnett. You can buy Mac B Kid Spy at thereadingbug.com or your local independent bookstore. Mac, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I had a really fun time.
Goodbye, and thank you.
A very special thank you to Mac Barnett for visiting with us today. To find and buy all the great books by him, visit thereadingbug.com/authorvisits. Reading Bug Author Visits are mixed and mastered by Resonate Recording and recorded live in our children's bookstore, The Reading Bug, in San Carlos, California. Please continue to support The Reading Bug and support independent booksellers whenever you can. For a personalized selection of books handpicked by me and the rest of our Reading Bug staff and delivered to your door each month, you can visit readingbugbox.com. Thanks, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.